It seems like what we are confronting is the kind of thing that we talk about continually on this channel. There are some extremely powerful and malevolent forces at work that are willing to push their agenda through veils of morality and reason that most people wouldn't contemplate. Your pledges for becoming president include bringing the troops home and spending that money on US infrastructure, healing the cultural divide rather than using the culture war to polarize the country, dismantling the surveillance state, and pardoning Assange and Snowden. Even those changes would indicate a significant shift in American domestic life, and of course, I suppose, therefore, the world. But given the power of these institutions and the scale of the challenge, what do you think is more likely to happen? Do you think that there is enough democracy in America for your campaign to make a significant impact? And surely a machine this nefarious would ultimately just come up with a way to prevent such a fatal attack on its modus operandi.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you talk about on this podcast all the time, which is the healing power of love, of uniting people from the left and the right in a populist rebellion against these, this superstructure. And I don't know if it will work, but that's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to go forward as if I believed that it was going to work, and I'm seeing, the tremendous power coming from, people now. More and more people on the left are joining my campaign. I had calls this week from Jeffrey Sachs, from Ralph Nader, from many other kind of liberal leaders who are, part of the superstructure of the, liberal democracy forever. And of course, on the right, the groups that were vilifying each other and continue to vilify each other. The profit of that, of that cabal that you're talking about, the uniparty cabal, the worst thing that they can imagine is that we can unify far left and far right in a revolution against this corrupt merger of state and corporate power. And that is, my plan. That's what I'm going to try to do. So far things are going well.
Yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary, Robert. My God, it's so fascinating to speak with you and to listen with you. In a sense, I think for a lot of us, somebody with your heritage, your ability to communicate, your ability to marshal facts, your durability, your willingness to enter into this debate, your pedigree when it comes to your victories as a lawyer against corporations, your history of supporting significant environmental issues, your ability to construct very complex narratives. For me, this is a great opportunity for democracy and for the planet. I must confess to at times feeling sort of startled by the depth and malfeasance of some of the conspiracies that you describe. But obviously, for me, you are an incredible opportunity for all of us. And I suppose if Donald Trump can rise out of the libertarian right as quite kind of a berserker figure that rhetorically reaches anger, having someone that's sort of like on the side of liberal values, real freedom, holding power to account, ending war, attacking corporate power, bringing people together is precisely what's needed. So we'll do everything we can in our own way to join you in this suicidal campaign that will end with us all being murdered.
We'll see what happens. I mean, it really is kind of an experiment. It's kind of a sociological experiment. We just had a big mass experiment performed on the American people over the past 3 years. And for me, this is a new kind of experiment. If you try to, do this with kind of love and reason and truth, whether that can have a unifying effect the same way that fear and intimidation and, and marginalization and polarization and gaslighting and orchestrated propaganda campaign that we saw over the last 3 years during COVID, whether there's some counterbalancing force in the universe that can be summoned and deployed to actually bring people together and to get them to challenge these, not only the dominant narratives, but these institutions that have been. I can tell you something. I know I've spent 40 years suing these agencies, and I know how to fix them. I know how to, I asked Ron DeSantis at one point. I asked him, I had breakfast with him one day, and I asked him during COVID when he was doing really good stuff in Florida on the COVID issue, really trying to have a science-based response. And he asked me at that point to have a breakfast with him, and I went over there and talked to him, and I said, we talked about him possibly running for presidency, and I said, how will you handle NIH? And he said, I'll burn it to the ground. And I understand the impulse, but I think I can have a more surgical impact on these agencies because I've spent 40 years suing them. I've spent 40 years studying them. I have a PhD and thinking about how do you fix these corrupt corporate cultures and at the same time honor the people who are in those agencies to do something good. We talked about. I know you and I have never met, but we have. My granddaughter was friends with your daughter at school, and her mother, my daughter-in-law, Amaryllis Fox, who's married to my oldest son, was a CIA agent for in the clandestine services for most of her career, and she's one of the most honorable and most courageous people that I've ever met. And she says that the 22,000 people who work for the CIA, most of them are good, patriotic American citizens who gravitated to that agency because they're idealistic. And so, but, it's like all of these agencies, the people who rise up in the agencies and get these permanent, beachheads of power, like Anthony Fauci, who's there for 50 years. And he lasts for 50 years for the same reason he rose, which is he's in the tank with industry. He's part of this dynamic of agency capture, where these agencies are become the sock puppets for the industries they're supposed to regulate. And NIH and CDC and FDA are captured by big pharma. EPA is captured by the chemical industry, the pesticide. And when I sued Monsanto, my team, we went through discovery documents, uncovered them. That we found these emails, extraordinary emails, where it showed that the head of the pesticide division for almost a decade, Jess Rowland, was secretly working for Monsanto the entire time. And this is true throughout these agencies. I've sued USDA and Smithfield and Cargill and Monsanto and the industrial agriculture and meat processing facilities, which own that agency. And if you look at the CIA, it's a captured agency too, but it's captured by the military industrial complex. And, I know what I would do with the CIA, which is the same thing my father would do, which is not to burn it to the ground, but to separate the espionage division, which is what it's supposed to be doing. Espionage is information gathering and analysis, and we need that function at CIA, and we need those people to be happy with their agency and proud of their agency and performing better than anybody else in the world. But the attachment of that agency to the clandestine division is corrupting to the entire process, because the problem with all the clandestine operations, there's no accountability. Nobody, and if the espionage division is part of that, they end up justifying all of these black ops rather than saying, okay, let's take a look at the long-term blowback, not just the short-term, objective. So, for example, the CIA believes if they look at the overthrow of Saddam Hussein, they say that's a success story because they got rid of him. But then we spend $8 trillion. We kill more Iraqis than Saddam Hussein. We turn Iraq into a proxy for Iran. It's an incoherent nation that's just a series of warring death squads between Shia and Sunni. And we create ISIS, and we drive 2 million refugees into Europe and destabilize democracy in every country in Europe, and probably, have something to do with Brexit. And so if you look at all of the blowback and then say, was it a good idea to overthrow Saddam Hussein? The answer would be no, it wasn't. The same is true with the CIA's overthrow of Jacob Arbenz in Guatemala. And, we're still paying the price in 1953 with all of the Guatemalans lined up at our border trying to get in, because that country has never regained its stability through all of these military interventions and CIA machination. Look at Iran. Every Iranian knows that we overthrew the, first democratically elected government of Mohammad Mossadegh in 1954, and all of this turmoil coming out of Iran and the antagonism and hatred of our country, it wasn't unjustified. We, claiming that we were a lover and promoter of democracy, we went in because Mossadegh was going to give a better deal to his people in their oil revenues, and we were going to undermine Texaco, which another client of Alan Dulles' and BP. And so we overthrew him. So while saying that we want to promote democracy around the world, we're destroying that. And then we have now 70 years of blowback, and nobody ever does any accountability on any CIA operation. If you do a drone strike against a family in the middle of Afghanistan, you say, okay, we made our objective, we killed the terrorists. What happens generationally? That sends out ripples of hatred and ripples of revenge and vendetta that never go away. And, have you eliminated more hatred than you've created? Those are the questions that a real intelligence agency needs to be answering. The real intelligence agency needs to be looking at our dependence on foreign oil and what that does to our country. Is that really the biggest national security threat to America? Oh, these are the kind of, this is what I will create, recreate the CIA to be doing this. I know exactly what my father was going to do. That's what he was going to do. He was going to divide those two functions because he saw that they were corrupting.